Hello everyone, welcome to the team assignment for lesson 2 stretch. So in this video, we're going to go over how we can connect the API to MongoDB and retrieve the data from the database. So to get started, you're going to need to make a MongoDB account if you haven't already. So there's two things you're going to need to do here. Under database access, you're going to need to make a user. And under network access, you're going to want to add an IP address and put 0.0.0.0/0. This is so your database can be accessed from any IP address. Let's go back to database and connect to our cluster. Under Compass, you can get your connection string to connect to MongoDB. You'll just need to replace your username and your password here. And if you download Compass, it'll make it a lot easier to import data. Once you download MongoDB Compass, you can paste your connection string in the URI right here. Make sure that you replace your username and password from here when you paste it in. If you've already connected, you'll have a resend section and you can just copy your connection string if you need to, or just connect directly by double clicking. If you haven't already, create a new database and name the database, and the collection should be named user or whatever you put inside of your controller. Adding data is pretty straightforward. You can insert the document or import it in JSON format and import user.json. In the stretch challenge, we need an environmental variable, which is a .env file. This file has private information that we don't want to share and put on GitHub, otherwise you can get hacked. So you're just going to have MongoDB_URI equals, and then you're going to paste your connection string. Inside of your package.json, you're also going to need .env and MongoDB. Inside of app.ts, there are a few small changes. We're going to need to initialize the database before we start listening with our app. The reason behind this is if we're not connected to our database, there's no point in serving our backend. So if we do have an error whenever we try to initialize the database, like if MongoDB is down or another issue happens, we're going to log the error and not start our app. This initdb function comes from connect. This is a new file that we're going to have to add. Let's dive into connect.ts. So we're exporting two functions, initdb and getDB. First, we're going to make a variable that will hold the database connection. In our initdb, we're going to check if the database is already initialized. If it is, we're going to return and the function is going to end. If not, we're going to connect to the database using our MongoDB URI string. We're going to set the database equal to the new database instance. Otherwise, we're going to throw an error. We also have getDB down here, and we're just going to check if the database is not initialized. If it's not initialized, we're going to throw an error. Otherwise, we're going to return the database. Inside of our controller, we're importing getDB from connect. If we go down here to getDB, we're just checking if the database is initialized. If it already is initialized, we're just going to return the database. The difference in the stretch challenge from the previous video is instead of importing the file directly, we're getting it from the database. So after we import our database, we get the collection user and find it. And we're going to store that in result. We're going to convert result to an array, store that as in a variable called list. We're going to set the header to JSON format, and we're going to return it with a status code of 200, and we return what we got from the database so that the front end can display it. So now let's try running our program. So once we have our backend running, you just need to open your index.html in the browser. Perfect. Notice that some directories are grayed out. That's because we added them to our .gitignore. Our gitignore is what we do not want to go to GitHub. As the .env file has our connection string with our username and password, anybody could hack into the database if they got access to it. So we need to add it to gitignore so it doesn't get pushed to GitHub. The environmental variable can be added whenever we host our website on Render directly in a safe place. We aren't using Render for this video, but it's important to never push this to GitHub no matter what. You might be wondering why we're using a database instead of just hosting it on the back end like we did in the previous assignment. Most companies are going to have millions and millions of records, potentially billions and trillions. When you have a database, they're scalable. They're used to handling large volumes of data efficiently. If a backend server crashes or something goes wrong, it can potentially corrupt the data and cause lots of issues. By having a database, multiple users can also read and write to it at the same time. Data stored in databases will survive server crashes and restarts. Thanks for watching and hope you have a fantastic day.